Hi there and welcome to this beginner's Moodle course. I created this course to help people get started in using Moodle to create great online courses. Moodle is a great platform for online teaching and it gives you so much power, so much flexibility and so much customizability over how you create a course. So I'm going to take you step by step through how to create great online learning from the very basic tools up to a lot of the more advanced stuff. I'll intersperse that with a little bit of advice on how to create good courses. So not just the mechanics of it, the technical side of it, how to use the tools, but what makes up a good course, what kind of structures you can use and what kind of activities you can use and how you use those activities to actually teach your students and engage those students. I've been working with Moodle for at least 4 or 5 years now, through both working with businesses to set up Moodle business courses and educational institutions. So I've worked with Scottish universities for around 4 or 5 years now on their own Moodle courses, training academics in universities how to use Moodle better, how to use it at all. I was also lucky enough to be runner-up in the Moodler of the Year competition at MoodleMoot this year, 2014. So I hope that gives you an idea that the approaches that I follow tend to be quite well looked upon, and hopefully the advice I give you can help you create great courses in future. So not much more to say apart from I'm excited to help you get started on your Moodle journey, and I hope that I can help you create some great online learning in future. So let's get started. In this video, I want to give you a very basic introduction to how Moodle is structured. So just have a quick look at the site itself, how everything is laid out. This is what you would see as a very basic Moodle installation. So I have pared back my own website, tellteacher.com, to show you how it would look when it's first installed. So this is the very front page. You can see a few things here. For a start, it's got 3 columns. That's a pretty standard layout for any Moodle site, so it's probably likely that your own Moodle site will look like this. On the left-hand side, you tend to have more settings type things. You often have the navigation block on the top left here, which we'll cover in a future video. And you also have admin, course settings, that type of stuff, including your profile settings in the next one down. That block is often in that position. On the right here, I've got an introduction to the site itself, and I have a calendar as well. And then in the middle, you actually have the content of the site itself. Here we can see the course categories, so it shows what courses are within the tellteacher.com site, and if I click one of these categories, it'll actually show me the courses within that category. One important thing to be aware of is that these columns can be edited. So your own Moodle site may have different blocks in each of these columns. And in fact, if you have control over the front page or within your course, then you can edit these blocks as well. So if you manage a course either as a manager or a teacher, you can decide what appears in these columns on the left and the right hand side. And that concludes our basic introduction to the structure of the Moodle website. In this video, I'm going to look at how you navigate around Moodle. Now, it's one of the less intuitive or more complained about things within Moodle is how you navigate around. But it's actually quite simple once you get used to the different ways that Moodle offers you to navigate around the site. So the first thing you can do is, this is us on the front page. So from here, the first way to find your course is to navigate to the right category. So let's say we want to look at a Moodle course, using Moodle course. I would go into this one, Advancing Your Online Space, and then you can see the courses that are within that category, Enhancing Your Online Space. So we've got Teaching with Google Drive and Making Magic with Moodle here. From here, we can now choose to access any course. So just click on the course, and that takes you into the course itself. Now, one of the most important things to be aware of within Moodle is that the breadcrumbs are one of the most useful aspects of navigation. So these breadcrumbs appear on just about any page apart from the very front page of Moodle. Now, within the course space, the way they're structured is like so. You have first, obviously, home, so that takes you back to the very front page of Moodle. Then you've got courses, and that takes you to the course selection page. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So that lets you see the categories of courses that are here, lets you navigate between the courses. If I go back though, next one is the category itself. So this is the category that the current course is within. So this is the Make Magic with Moodle course. If I click Enhancing Your Online Space, you can see all the courses within that category. Go back again, and then the next one is actually the course itself. So you've got Make Magic with Moodle Home. Now this is the short name for this course. So anytime I want to go back to the home page of this course, all I have to do is click that name there. If I go a little bit deeper into this course, then I can show you what that looks like. So if I go into the course info section, then you can see that suddenly we have a couple more sections on the breadcrumbs. So how does this course work is the current page. So that's the furthest along, and then you've got resource section. So that actually shows the topic. You can't click on that one because you can't actually navigate to a topic itself, but you can always navigate back to the course homepage by clicking that section of the breadcrumbs, as you can see. And as I mentioned, if you want to come back out of this course, you can always just click Home or Courses, and that will take you back out so you can access a different course. So I would say the breadcrumbs are probably the most important navigation element within Moodle, and often people miss them as a navigation tool. So it's worth being aware of them so that you can navigate around much more easily. And that concludes our video on navigating around the Moodle website. In this video, I want to introduce you to the navigation block and why it might be useful to you throughout your use of Moodle. So there's a few things that appear in here. First of all, there's the My Home link. I'll explain exactly what the My Home page really does for you in a different video, not really something we're going to look at in this one, but you can get to it from the navigation block, no problem at all. Then you've got site pages, which are some things like site blogs, badges, tags, that type of stuff. So it's different tools that may be used within your Moodle install or not. These are things that are probably less commonly used within many Moodles, but we can cover that elsewhere as well if you're interested. Next down we have profile. So you can access a lot of things to do with your profile from the navigation block. So you can always go and have a look at your profile. You can have a look at resources that you've created or posted, such as forum posts or blogs. And you can also access your messages between you and either fellow students, fellow teachers, or other people on the Moodle website. And similarly, you can access your private files and any badges that you've earned within this space here. The most useful part of the navigation block, though, however, is the courses section. And this lets you navigate between your courses and actually around within courses too. So if I just go back to the home page, I'll show you how that looks and how that works. Now on the home page, you can see that if you click the courses button, or link I should say, it always takes you to a list of categories. So that lets you navigate amongst the categories on the right hand side. But you can also click that down arrow and it actually shows you a list of the categories in the navigation block. So you can navigate between the categories from the navigation block directly. If I click the down arrow again, you can see all the courses that are within that category. So if I want to go to the podcasting course, for example, within Teaching with Media, I can directly find that within my navigation block and click podcasting there. So no matter where you are within the Moodle course, you can always access different courses. You can navigate between courses using the navigation block. Now the navigation block really comes into its own once you're actually enrolled on a course. So I've now enrolled this user into the podcasting course, and you can see now that a link here appears called My Courses as opposed to just Courses. If I open that up, you can see the podcasting course appears, and you can actually see all of the topics within that course. So I'm not even within the podcasting course, but I can actually see all of the topics and navigate amongst them. So once you're enrolled on courses, it really lets you get down to the details of what's in these courses and find all of the information you need. So I can go straight into that course and I can look at resources within the course. If I come back up to the top level, you can see here that all of the topics can be navigated amongst really easily, and it just offers a different way of finding your way around Moodle. The navigation block really I find that I use the breadcrumbs to navigate around from page to page normally, but if I really know exactly where I want to go, for example, a resource on, say, topic 3 that's within a certain book, I can find that book and that resource within the navigation block quite quickly and easily and navigate straight to it, cutting out a number of steps. So that's where I find the navigation block really comes into its own. I think in terms of general navigation, you'll find yourself alternating between the breadcrumbs and the navigation block as you move yourself around Moodle. So that concludes our video on using the navigation block to find your way around. In this video, we're going to take our first proper look at a Moodle course and see how it's structured. Now, this is a brand new course created for the purposes of this demonstration, and it shows a completely default setup. So this is how a course will look when it's set up, completely blank, brand new for you as a teacher to start building upon. Let's have a look around and see what's here. First of all, you'll see the standard block. So you've got your navigation block on the left, then you've got your admin block, which will show you a few different things depending on what permissions you have within that course. On the right, you have another column which generally shows a few default blocks. So, for example, you always tend to have a search forums block at the top, so you can search forums if you like. Then you've got latest news, so you can add news topics to show to your students. Then you've got upcoming events, recent activity, those type of blocks. So there's a few default blocks added to most courses as standard. This will depend on where your Moodle site is located, what your Moodle admins have set up as the default blocks. So these could be different, but you'll tend to have some defaults and you'll tend to have this 3-column format. The third column, of course, is the center, and that is the content itself. So this is where the actual teaching goes on. At the moment, obviously, it's blank. We have our header, which includes a news forum, but there's nothing in that header at the moment. And then we have our set of topics. So this course here is set up as a weekly format. So you can see that it starts on the 15th of October, and there's a topic for every week. Now, by a topic, I mean this is a title, and between these two lines will be that topic material. And once we start to edit the course, you'll see how it works in terms of adding things to these topics. The last thing to be aware of is, again, I've looked at navigation in a previous video, but you've always got your breadcrumbs up here as well on the course page so that you can start to navigate around the course. And on the front page here, obviously, this is the short name of the course, Google Drive, so you can always use that to navigate back to the front page. The next step, of course, is starting to edit this course, and that's where we use the Turn Editing On button up here on the right, but we'll look at that again in a next video. So that concludes this video on this default structure of a new Moodle course. In this video, we're going to look at the basics of editing a course. So you've got your brand new course, brand spanking new course here, nothing on it at all at the moment. What we want to do is start to add our content. The first thing you need to do is turn editing on. So as you can see at the moment, there aren't any editing icons. There doesn't seem to be any way to add content, and that's because editing mode isn't currently switched on. This is one of the basics for editing. You do that by clicking this button up in the top right, which says Turn Editing On. So if I click that, you'll suddenly see that the view changes quite dramatically. So you suddenly get a lot more options. And there's a lot you can do now. Now let me explain what most of these icons mean. So the most obvious one is the cog here. Now the cog means that you're going to edit that section. So you see them all over the page. There's quite a lot of cogs placed around. In a content section, it generally means you want to edit what that the section that it's below contains. So if you hover over it, you can actually see what it looks like it's going to edit. So that cog there is to edit the summary. So that is the summary of this topic. If I click that, it'll take you into the editing section for those topics. Now I'm going to cover how you actually go about editing these different elements in later videos, but this video is just to show you how you go about editing different sections. Other tools you find here are the eye icon. So that is to make topics visible or not visible. Again, if you hover over it, a little tooltip pops up and you can see what it says. So if I click it, you can see that it fades out a little bit. The eye has a cross through it, and that means it's hidden. Over in the blocks, you can click the cog, and that gives you editing options for those blocks. And then on the left again in the content, the add an activity or resource, that's another common one. So that's how you add different elements to each topic. So if you click that, that'll let you add all sorts of different content to each topic. Now again, we're going to go through the details of each of these items in later videos, but just for the moment, let's add a label and I'll show you how that looks. So once the label has been added to the screen, it lets you add some text to it. So I've added a bit of example content there just so that we can see what it looks like. I'll click Save and Return to Course. And you can see now that that label has been added to the course content. So that's what something looks like on the course content. I'm just going to add one or two more things just to show you as a demonstration. So I've now added a few different things. So I've got a label here, I've got a chat room and just a simple page. Again, we'll look at the details of these in later videos, but I just want to show you how the editing options appear on the content section. Now you can move around, there's a few different options, so you can move things around first, that's on the left hand side here. You've got the move icon. You can drag things up and down just by clicking and dragging on that. So if I click on that cross and drag things up and down, I can reorder items. I can also move them between topics, so I can drag this chat room down to the next topic, no problem at all. If I want to edit the name of an item like a page or a chat room, if I can edit that name, it shows me this little pencil here. So I can click that pencil and it lets me change that name straight away. Press return and that edits the name. And then the third thing you have on the right here is the edit, and that's where you get to the main options for that item. So for whatever type of item it is, these options will change a little bit. So this is particular to chat rooms. You've got edit settings, you've got move right, so that indents that item. You can see that it pushes it over just a little bit. You've got hide, duplicate, assign roles, and delete. So if you want to get rid of it altogether, click delete. If you want to hide it so that students can't see it initially, you can click that hide button, and you can see it goes faded out a little bit. But that's what these edit buttons do. And duplicate obviously lets you create a little copy of that item as well. So if you think it's easier to copy something and then make some small edits, then you can use that duplicate item. Finally, for each item, you have this on the right. It looks a little bit like a person's silhouette, I guess, and it represents groups. And again, we'll look at groups later on in the course, but this lets you choose what this item is available to in terms of groups on the course. Finally, just to show you that these icons do go across all sorts of areas, you can not only move the items in the content section using these little arrow icons, you can move blocks like that as well. So you can drag them up and down just by clicking on that arrow icon. And similar with topics as well. So you can actually rearrange topics by clicking this arrow icon and dragging it up and down. So that should give you an introduction to all of the editing icons that's available to you on the Moodle course once you click Turn Editing On. And that concludes this video on editing icons. In this video, I want to explain the terminology that I'm using to explain different areas within Moodle. It makes it easier when I'm talking about different parts of the page that we can edit so that you understand exactly what I'm referring to.
So the main thing at the moment, the main overall structure is that we have sidebars on the left and right. So this is one sidebar, left sidebar, and then we've got the right hand sidebar over here. And I call them sidebars because that's the terminology you usually use within web design. So you've got your normal content in the center, and then you have sidebars on the left and the right. Sometimes you only have them on one side. So you may have the content and just the sidebar on the left, or just the sidebar on the right. Next, we have the areas within the content area itself. So the way I tend to refer to it is that you've got the introductory section at the top. So this is just the introduction to your course. This is the one that's always at the top, no matter how many topics or weeks or whatever you have down below. So this is the introductory section, that's what I'll call it. And further down, you have sections of the course. Now, these are technically called sections, and you can see that they're referred to that. If I click the edit button, you can see that we have section name and summary. So that tells you that that's what Moodle itself calls these areas. Now, the reason I give it a name section is because these sections can be referred to under different names later on. So you can have a topic setup. So each of these would be a topic, as you can see just now. So topic 2, topic 3, topic 4. Or you can have a weekly setup, so each section represents a week. And you'll have seen that in some of the earlier videos. I've been working on a course which has a weekly setup, so it has dates as standard up at the top here. And there are other ways to set up a Moodle course as well, where each section might represent a type of activity or a type of resource, or each section might represent a unit within a course. So it might represent a few weeks or a different subject or a category of subjects. So there's different ways that the sections within Moodle can be used. But it's good to know that when I refer to a section, what I mean is one part of the course, which is represented by the lines that separate it. So you've got a line at the top, line at the bottom. And at the moment I have 10 sections within this course represented as topics. The last thing I want to say is that within each section you've got two areas. So within each section you always have a header. So there's a section header, and that is represented by what is the default the default name for that section. So if it's a topic layout, it'll be a default name of topic 3, topic 4, topic 5. And you can edit that header just by clicking the cog. And every section always has a header. So even if the section is entirely empty, as this section is, so this section hasn't had anything added to it yet, it will always have that header present. And then you're able to add more activities, resources, or labels below that section header. And that actually works with the introductory area as well. So the introduction section, introduction area, has a header area. So you've got the summary of it. Now Moodle actually calls it a summary, so it says there edit summary. But I tend to call it the header. But when I refer to the header of a section or of the introduction, I'll be referring to the summary in Moodle. And again, the introduction section up here also has a space for more labels or more resources or activities as well. So I hope that explains a little bit more about the terminology within Moodle and when I'm referring to different parts of the Moodle page. In this video, I want to show you how to work with section names. So each section has, at the top, as we've talked about, it has the summary area, which you can edit with the edit icon here. This is to give an introduction to that section, and it has two parts to it. You have the summary area, which is just the text of the area. So this is just the text that's placed in the summary. And then you have the section name. So that's this one here. Now, if we go in and edit it, you can see that topic 2 is the section name here, and then we've got a title below that along with some summary text. Now, if I go in and edit that, you can see that topic 2 doesn't actually appear anywhere. The header that we could see on the page obviously appears at the top of the summary text, but the topic 2 section name doesn't actually appear. And that's because section name we're using at the moment as the default section name. So it just says use default section name, and that is ticked. Now we can change that if we like, so if we untick that, we can then use our own custom section name. And I can show you how it looks if we just put my standard header up there. So this is the header I was wanting to use. If I just copy that up there, then save that change, then you can see that this section now shows no topic 2, but using Google Drive to create collaborative documents is at the top. So that's one way to do it. Another way, which I sometimes use because I quite like using long titles or long headers for each section, but then that will actually show up in your navigation. So these section names actually are used elsewhere within Moodle, including if you're using the layout of a course, which means that you're only seeing one section at a time. These are used as a navigation. So actually, in some cases, it's good to keep these section names quite short. Having long ones can get in the way quite a lot. Such as here in your navigation block, you can see that these section names are showing up as quite long names. It just looks a bit untidy. So often I will actually have a section name which is a lot shorter, a kind of summary, and then have the longer header down below that. So if I take that out and put that back down here, and I make that a header again, then if I put in something shorter here, so if I just have Google Drive Collaboration, oops, I can't type today, then that is my new section name. And then I've got the summary text just below it. And let's see how that looks. If I click Save Changes, you've now got Google Drive Collaboration as the section name, and then using Google Drive to create collaborative documents as the section header. And then if I go up here and have a look in my navigation block, you can see that Google Drive Collaboration is now the title within navigation. Just to show you another example of how this can happen as well, on another one of my course websites, I have a different layout. So this layout is actually the complete default for the clean theme, and normally I would say that most Moodle courses will have been skinned or themed, so they look a little bit different, and quite often this section name is actually made a little bit smaller. It's made to look a little bit more, it creates more of a divide between the different sections, and therefore actually it looks a bit more sensible to have just a short section name and then your header below. And I can show you on this website here that that is the case. So the top of each section is divided by this sort of darker bar. So that delineates each section, and the section name actually appears within that bar. So it's a bit of a smaller bit of text. It just gives a summary of what that section is about, and then the actual header for the section is placed within the summary text, and then you have the normal summary text below that. So most often when you're working with university, or if you're working in a well-designed Moodle theme, this is the type of approach that'll work, and therefore you'll want to work with different types of section names, maybe a bit shorter, maybe a bit better summaries, and then that'll also appear more effectively within your navigation block. In this video, I want to show you how to work with section names. So each section has, at the top, as we've talked about, it has the summary area, which you can edit with the edit icon here. This is to give an introduction to that section, and it has two parts to it. You have the summary area, which is just the text of the area. So this is just the text that's placed in the summary. And then you have the section name. So that's this one here. Now, if we go in and edit it, you can see that topic 2 is the section name here, and then we've got a title below that along with some summary text. Now, if I go in and edit that, you can see that topic 2 doesn't actually appear anywhere. The header that we could see on the page obviously appears at the top of the summary text, but the topic 2 section name doesn't actually appear. And that's because section name we're using at the moment as the default section name. So it just says use default section name, and that is ticked. Now we can change that if we like, so if we untick that, we can then use our own custom section name. And I can show you how it looks if we just put my standard header up there. So this is the header I was wanting to use. If I just copy that up there, then save that change, then you can see that this section now shows no topic 2, but using Google Drive to create collaborative documents is at the top. So that's one way to do it. Another way, which I sometimes use because I quite like using long titles or long headers for each section, but then that will actually show up in your navigation. So these section names actually are used elsewhere within Moodle, including if you're using the layout of a course, which means that you're only seeing one section at a time. These are used as a navigation. So actually, in some cases, it's good to keep these section names quite short. Having long ones can get in the way quite a lot. Such as here in your navigation block, you can see that these section names are showing up as quite long names. It just looks a bit untidy. So often I will actually have a section name which is a lot shorter, a kind of summary, and then have the longer header down below that. So if I take that out and put that back down here, and I make that header again, then if I put in something shorter here, so if I just have Google Drive Collaboration, oops, I can't type today, then that is my new section name. And then I've got the summary text just below it. And let's see how that looks. If I click Save Changes, you've now got Google Drive Collaboration as the section name, and then using Google Drive to create collaborative documents as the section header. And then if I go up here and have a look in my navigation block, you can see that Google Drive Collaboration is now the title within navigation. And on the other layout that I was mentioning as well, when you're only doing one section at a time. Just to show you another example of how this can happen as well, on another one of my course websites, I have a different layout. So this layout is actually the complete default for the clean theme, and normally I would say that most Moodle courses will have been skinned or themed, so they look a little bit different, and quite often this section name is actually made a little bit smaller. It's made to look a little bit more, it creates more of a divide between the different sections, and therefore actually it looks a bit more sensible to have just a short section name and in your header below. And I can show you on this website here that that is the case. So the top of each section is divided by this sort of darker bar. So that delineates each section, and the section name actually appears within that bar. So it's a bit of a smaller bit of text. It just gives a summary of what that section is about, and then the actual header for the section is placed within the summary text, and then you have the normal summary text below that. So most often when you're working with university, or if you're working in a well-designed Moodle theme, this is the type of approach that'll work, and therefore you'll want to work with different types of section names, maybe a bit shorter, maybe a bit better summaries, and then that'll also appear more effectively within your navigation block. In this video, I want to introduce the basic content editor tools within Moodle. So this is a standard content page. This is just editing the introduction to a particular topic. But the standard way of putting things in is just type in your introduction. So I'm going to insert some text here, just a standard introduction to a topic. And I'll show you how we edit that with the basic tools at the top here. Now, the first one to look at is paragraph styles. So in a way to combat what sometimes happens in old Moodle courses, which is that people will have all sorts of different sizes of text, different colours, different styles, Moodle tries to keep you to standard paragraph styles. So if we click on that, you get 3 different types of headers, and you also get paragraph. So paragraph is the standard normal text, and then you get 3 sizes of headers. So let's look at how this works. This top line here, that would work best as a header. So what I'll do is I'll put my cursor on that line. So you just select anywhere on that line, click on the paragraph style, and then click header 1. And that obviously makes that text a lot bigger. I can also choose the other types of headers. So header 2 is just a little bit smaller, and header 3 is smaller still. So you can format it in a hierarchical style so that you've got header 1s, header 2s, header 3s in whatever way you need them. But it's a good way to put in some styling, so make things a bit more stand out, make things a header without making all sorts of different styles that makes your page look a bit messy. You've obviously got a few other tools as well here. I'll go through the basic ones. So we've got bold. So if you want to bold some stuff, you just select the text. That's standard as you would in a word processor. So if you were using Word or similar, select it and then press the bold button, and that makes that bit bold. I can also use italics, so I can select a couple of words there, click the italics button, and it makes it italic as normal. I can also create lists. So if I go down to a new line, click the bullet list button, and I can now create a list as I would normally in a word processor. And in the same way, I can create a numbered list as well. So if I then select that and click the numbered list, then it turns it into a 1, 2, 3. So they're the most basic of formatting options, the type that you get in any type of word processor. So that concludes our video on the basics of the content editor in Moodle. In this video, I want to show you how to work with images. So that means inserting images into content and formatting them so they look good as well. So first stage is actually just uploading that image. So what you want to do is just put your cursor where you want the image to appear. So if I wanted the image to appear on a blank line here, all you do is click where you want it to be, create that blank line, make sure the flashing cursor appears there, and then click the image icon, which is up here, third from the right. Now there are a couple of different ways that you can put an image in. If you know the URL of an image, if it's already on the web, or if you have it somewhere on one of your own websites, you can put the web address of that image straight in here. Otherwise, probably a more reliable way to do it so that you know you have them recorded and it's not going to go offline at any point, is to upload images. So if you want to take something off the web, as long as you know it's freely available for use, you can download it and then upload it to Moodle. So I'll click Browse Repositories for that purpose. It'll often open up in either upload a file or recent files. So this is my recent files. These are ones that I've uploaded previously. So you can always just use a recent file that you have uploaded. So if you want to reuse files, if you use the same image, the same icon across your course, then you can always just click that image and then it'll select that file. You can just use that file. But I'm going to upload one just to show you how it works. So upload a file, choose file, and then just choose an image from here. So I'm going to choose that one there. Click upload, and then it takes you to the image properties. So next one down is a text box that says describe this image for someone who cannot see it. So this is called the alternative text on a website. This is an accessibility thing for people who have visual impairments. So if somebody can't see the screen, they might be using a screen reader, and this will read out, the screen reader will read out the text that you type in here to tell them what the image is like. So I would say this is clapperboard. If it's just decorative images, you can click that box and it lets you get away with not typing stuff in there so that it doesn't read out the decorative images. But if it's something if it's something that explains the text, then I would type in a little description there. Now the size you can work with. So this image is by default 128 by 128 pixels. I might want it a little bit smaller than that actually. So I'm going to half the size. See how that looks. It's a little bit too small possibly. So I'll go back to 128 by 128, maybe 100, and that reduces the size a little bit. I'll go for that size just now and save image. So you can see that the image appears now in the content. So that's it inserted in there. Now, the one thing here is that we've got an image, it looks alright, but there's a big bit of blank space here, so it might look quite nice if the text wrapped around that image. So what I might do is actually just delete this image. Now to select images in the new Moodle 2.7, you can't just click on it, it doesn't seem to just select the image, but I find that if you actually click it and drag it a little bit, and then just don't move it anywhere, so you just drag it just a tiny little bit, that selects the image and that lets you click your delete button now. So I'm just going to press the delete key and that gets rid of the image. So to put an image within the text itself, I'm going to click my cursor right next to the paragraph that I want the text to appear, the image to appear in. So the cursor is now flashing within that paragraph. I'm going to insert the image again. I'm going to browse repositories. This time I'll just use recent files because I've already uploaded this image. Select it, select this file. Now often it'll say that it already exists. I would just say overwrite because you don't want to create lots of copies. I'll have to insert my settings again, put my size again as 100, but this time I want to use alignment, so I'm going to align this to the right. Save image. And you can see that it now appears to the right of that paragraph. You can actually then drag that image around. So if you decide that's not a great place for it, you can click it and drag it. And you can see that the cursor appears underneath my pointer. So I can drag it to the start of this paragraph and it will appear next to that paragraph instead. Or I can drag it up to this one and it'll appear next to that paragraph. So you can drag images around quite easily. If I then want to edit it, I decide it's too small, I want it on the left, I just double click the image to edit it. This is how you edit any image within the content editor in Moodle, just double click it. And then I can change that back to the 128 to make it a bit bigger, and I can align it to the left. And I'll click Save Image now, and that aligns it to the left and it's a little bit larger. So if I now save that change, you can see that this image will appear right next to the paragraph within the text with a nice space between it, and that looks much better. So that concludes this video on how to work with images, including formatting them and moving them around within your document. In this video, I want to show you how to work with links, mainly for the purpose of directing students to different bits of content, either within your own site or on external sites. So let's take this bit of content, for example. So we're looking at Google Drive within this, how to use Google Drive to teach. And at some point within that, I might want to direct students to the Google Drive website. So the first time I mention it, Google Drive is a great tool to allow students to create documents together. So maybe I want to turn this bit of text into a link to Google Drive. Or maybe I actually want to create a separate link. So let's say, click here to go to the Google Drive website. And then I would type in the text that I want to actually be the link. So that's the first step. Type the text that you actually want to create as the link. So you can either create this as a new bit of text, as I've just done, or you can just create a bit of content already and just select a part of that content. So I'm going to show you on this one. I select the text that I want to turn into a link. So selecting Google Drive, and I click the link icon up here in the toolbar. And all I do is type in the URL. So it's easy enough to copy this from the address bar if you want to. So if I flick up the different browser, so I've got the browser here, I've searched for the Google Drive website. All I do is click up here in the toolbar, copy that, and then paste it in here. And that's me got the full URL. Now, if it's an external website, if it's out with your own Moodle website, most often it's best practice to click Open in a new window. And that means that the student still has their Moodle course open in a previous window, so they can always go back to it if they want. If you want to link to internal resources, so files that you've uploaded recently, then you can always click on the Browse Repositories there, and that lets you look through different files. So these are the images that I've uploaded previously. I could link directly to one of these images just by clicking them, or I could upload a new file and actually link to that as well. So it is possible to link to files too. I'm just going to show you it linking to a website here instead. So this is just linking to Google Drive, create link, and now you can see that that Google Drive piece of text is highlighted. So if I click Save Changes, then you can see that it's blue there, a little underline pops up below it, and if I click that, it'll open up a new window and take me to that Google Drive page. In a future video, I'm going to look at how to do more internal links, so how to link to different resources within your Moodle course. And that can be quite useful for directing students around your course, making it easier for them to navigate between the tasks and the different activities. But that'll be in a future video as it's slightly different in terms of finding those links. But that concludes how to create a standard link within Moodle. In this video, I'm going to cover how to work with videos within Moodle. So let's have a look at how you would embed a video within a piece of content. So this is a summary for a section, but it would work exactly the same way for a page or a book or any other element of content within Moodle. First thing we do is we create some space for the video. So I want the video to appear between these two paragraphs. So I create a blank line, and then I make sure my cursor is there, and then I click the media button. So if I click the media button, it asks for a URL. Now, the easiest way to embed video, the best way to embed video, is through other systems, so through something like YouTube or something like Vimeo. Now, they work in different ways depending on what system you use to embed that video. So I use Vimeo and YouTube commonly, and this is the Vimeo screen. So let me just show you how to embed that. All I do is navigate to a video I want to share, I want to embed, and I just find the URL for that. So that's me on the video page. And I just take the URL straight from the address bar. So I'll just bring that into view. Take the address bar, and then I'll flick back over to the Moodle page. I'll paste that in as the URL, and I'll give it a name. My Vimeo video. Insert media. And you can see that it inserts a link with the name just there. Now I'm going to do the same with a YouTube video. So I'm going to go back over to YouTube, find a video here. So within YouTube, you can actually get the link very easily within YouTube as well. So you just go to the share option below the video. So this is the video I want to embed. Just go to share on any video, and it'll show this sharing link here. So just click that, copy, and then I'll go back to Moodle. I'll insert another element of media. To URL, paste that, give it a name, my YouTube video. And I want to show you how they appear differently. So two of them there, just links, just text at the moment in the content editor. But if I save changes and then scroll down, you'll see that they appear quite differently. So the Vimeo video is just a link. If I click that, it goes straight to Vimeo and lets the students see that Vimeo video. But the YouTube one has obviously been embedded automatically. And this is something that Moodle does automatically, depending on how your Moodle is set up. So the standard default setting is that Moodle will turn any link to a YouTube video into an embedded link. So quite often, and you can try this on your own Moodle install, if you just insert a link to a YouTube video, it will turn into an embedded video. And that makes it very easy for you to embed YouTube videos and just play them straight away within your Moodle course. And that can be a really nice way to get media into your course, offer different ways of learning to your students. If this doesn't work for you though, if that default behavior is turned off, so it just shows up as a standard link for YouTube videos as well, then there is a way to embed them manually. That's no problem at all. So let's take out these links and I'll show you how to do that. Now, what you need to do here is actually use a little bit of HTML code. So I'll go back to the YouTube video. And in the same place that we found the link, so it's within the share section, just below the video, you've got an embed section here. And it has a little bit of code here. So all I do is select everything in there, copy that, and that gives us a bit of embed code. Now I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like this here. So it just starts with iframe. It's got the pointy brackets on it that denote the fact that it's a bit of HTML. Now you don't need to understand at all how that works. So you don't need to understand the code itself. You just need to have a copy of it to be able to paste into Moodle. So if we go back to Moodle now, then what we need to do is embed that as HTML code. So this is the first time we'll be using the HTML editor. To get that, go up to your editor, go to the left-hand box there to open up the extra section of tools, and it's the one at the end that looks like two pointy brackets, and that lets us see the code for this page. Now, the easiest way to find the place that you want to embed your video actually is to put possibly, say, AAA in there, so something that you will recognise. Put that where you want the video to be, and then go back to the code, so click the HTML code editor again. And then what you want to do is look through for that AAA. So I'm going to look through, and here it is here, AAA. So you just have to read through, because it can be a little bit confusing otherwise. Just try to find your way through the code. And all you do is select that AAA, and instead of that, you want to paste in your embed code. So you can see that the iframe embed code from YouTube replaced that AAA. And then if I go back and click HTML button again to go back to the normal editor, you'll see that the video has been embedded. So that's how to embed a YouTube video. If we go and click Save Changes, I'll just show you how that looks. And you actually have a little bit more control over it this way as well, because in YouTube you can set different sizes for the video, that type of thing, and you've got a bit more option over how you embed it. So I hope that explains how to embed the video, and good luck with embedding your own videos within your Moodle course. In this video, I want to go through the advanced editing tools within the Moodle Content Editor. So to get to the advanced tools, just go to the first icon on the toolbar and click that. It's titled Show More Buttons, and that shows you a whole nother row of tools. So let's go through these and see what they do. First, you've got a few different formatting ones. So you've got underline as the first one, standard underline, and then you've got a strike through, which is the second. Just a strike through as well if you want those styles. Next, you've got superscript and subscript. So subscript just makes things the subscript, so lower down, and superscript just makes things look higher up. So it's for mathematical equations normally for the superscript, and for sort of annotations to letters or words on the subscript. Next, we have justification. So left justified is the standard. Obviously, you normally get in any kind of document, normally left justified. Then we've got center, so you can center your text as well. And then you've got right justified too. So if we select that and click the right justified, then it actually justifies all on the right hand side, should you want to do that. The next two are indent. And these can be quite useful just for certain types of formatting. So if you want to format your text in a little bit, so if you want it to look indented, then you can click that indent button, and that indents it further and further in. You can see there's a gap or a margin on the left hand side, and then you've got the opposite on the other button, so you can bring it back out again, outdent. And that brings it back towards the left hand side. The final two I'll look at in this video are the equation editor and insert characters. Now the equation editor just lets you use some of the special types of characters you need to create equations. So if you're teaching a maths or a physics or a scientific course of some sort, then you can create your own equations using Greek letters and the like, just using the equation editor. The next one is to insert the special characters. So if you want to use, again, just any of these Greek characters or any other special characters, you can insert them using that. So you don't have to worry about the equation editor if it's just one character at a time. Now there are a few more tools here, including tables and the like, but we'll look at them in a future video as they're worth looking at on their own. So I hope this helps you with the advanced editing tools in the Moodle Content Editor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the table tool within the Moodle Content Editor. This can be used for a few different purposes. The main one is to tabularize data. So if you want to actually have some data in a table, then you can use this table tool to create that table for you. So you just create a space within the content editor where you want the table to appear. So I'm going to create a blank line just here in between these two paragraphs. And then I'll click the table tool. You can give it a caption if you so choose. I've now added that caption for my table. You can define headers on the columns, rows, or both. So that means that you can style those headers. So it means that they'll be designated from the normal rows, and you can actually add styles to them using the style sheets that are attached to your Moodle theme. This is something that you can't really do as a standard teacher, but if you do have control over the styling of your Moodle theme, then you can do that. Or it may be that your Moodle install is actually already set up to define headers. So you could try that and see if it looks any different. Next, you can do rows and columns. So let's say we're going to have 5 rows and 4 columns. I'll just create a table, and that creates the table here. I've now put some data into that table just to let you see what it looks like. And if I now save changes, we can see that the table appears on the content area. So as you can see on the basic theme that I'm using for this demonstration course, there's not really any theme, there's not any styling. So you don't see the borders, you don't see the columns. Headers are bold, so you can see that because I set the first row to be a header, they are bolder, but the rest of it is not styled. So in your own Moodle, no doubt there'll be styling there, which is based on your theme, what has been set by the theme creators for your own Moodle install. And that concludes how to create a table. This video will just give you a quick intro to the HTML editor within Moodle. So that's the last icon on the toolbar for the advanced tools, so that's the second row of tools. And it looks like two pointy brackets, which represents the way HTML works. All HTML codes are within those pointy brackets. So if I just click that, you can see then that you can view the code behind the content that you've just created. So normally, you can click that again to go back to the normal view. So the normal way that you create content is obviously using the formatting tools up here. You insert pictures, you do use the styling up here to create the look of your page, to create the content itself. But all of this is created actually as HTML by Moodle. So using this HTML editor, you can see that core HTML behind it. Now the reason this is useful is because Moodle only gives you limited control over how your page looks. If you know a little bit of HTML, then you can actually change a lot of the styles of your content. You can do a lot more with it, and you can use a lot of little tricks to make your Moodle courses look a lot more nice. So it's worth knowing that that tool is there just in case you need it in the future. And that concludes this video on the HTML editor. In this section of the course, we're going to look at blocks. So it's best first to define what they are and what they're generally used for. Blocks are the items that are found in the sidebar of your course. So you've got two sidebars generally. You've got left and the right, and in each sidebar you'll normally find quite a few blocks. Now these are the blocks that are installed on a course by default. So we've got search forums, we've got latest news, we've got upcoming events and recent activity. And then on the left we have the standard ones such as the navigation block and the administration block a little bit further down. So these are the normal blocks that are used on your standard course. But there are many other blocks as well, and we'll explore quite a lot of the blocks that you can use on the courses at some point in this section. Now blocks can also appear on the homepage, and they can be quite useful for getting information out to your students from the homepage or from other category pages. So you can add blocks to other parts of the Moodle site out with your courses as well. To add blocks or edit blocks on the front page, you'll obviously need a little bit more permissions over your site. So it might be that if you're just a teacher on a particular course, that you can't change the blocks on the front page of your Moodle website. In which case though, this will still be useful to you because you'll be working with blocks within your course. And it's normal that you won't need all of the default blocks that you're offered when you first start your course. So quite often the first thing to do when you open up a course is to trim your blocks so that you're only using the ones you actually want to use, and then start to add other blocks that you think will be useful in your particular context. So that's a quick look at blocks. In the following videos of this section, we'll actually look at the individual blocks and how you can work with them. One of my first jobs on any new Moodle course is to trim blocks, so to take away the blocks that I don't really need. Because as you start a new course, you tend to get a lot of default blocks. So these are the standard ones, and I've gone through them a few times already. So to get rid of the blocks, this is what you do. Just click over the edit button. We're getting used to this cog icon, so just click on that and that'll give you the actions for this block. And then you've got a few different options. You can just hide it so that your students couldn't see it if you want to keep it there just in case you want to use it later. But normally if you don't need it, I would just delete it. So click delete search forums block. And that will get rid of it. It'll just ask if you're sure. Click yes. I also don't tend to use latest news, so I will delete that as well. And probably the same with the next one down, which is upcoming events. So I don't tend to have events on my courses because they're all fully online, so I would delete that as well. But obviously, if you do have events within your course, if you want to show upcoming office hours or assignments or whatever, you can have them in there. I will tend to keep the recent activity block because it's quite handy in being able to see exactly what's happened on the course since you've last visited. So I'll leave that there. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how to delete blocks so that you can trim your course down to only what's needed, make sure it's uncluttered, and let students focus on the content that they use to learn. In this video, I'm going to quickly show you how to move blocks around so that you can rearrange them within your course. So you can see on the right hand side here, we've got recent activity and search forums. All you do to move a block is to grab it by the move icon there, which is 4 arrows, and just drag it. So click and drag, and I can reorder them. So recent activity is now below search forums. I can drag that one back below recent activity as well. I can also drag between columns this way. So if I drag search forums over to the left hand side, I can keep that at the top, and then I could arrange that so that it's further down the list. I could drag that down below administration, for example, maybe bring the navigation one right up to the top so that people can access that quite easily. So that's how to move them around most easily. One other trick here is that you can go from a 3-column layout to a 2-column layout by rearranging your blocks. So you can see at the moment we have a column on the left and on the right, and then one in the centre. So we have 3 columns. We have the 2 sidebars and the content. Now if I drag recent activity, which is the last block on the right, over to the left hand side, so that there's now no blocks on the right hand side, you can see that the content actually expands out to fill the space available. So it actually takes away that right hand column, and now we have all our blocks on the left hand side. So it just gives the content a lot more room to breathe, a lot more focus on the content, as opposed to having almost half the space taken up by sidebars. I feel it focuses a little bit more on what the student needs in the course. You can always get that column back by just grabbing one of the blocks and dragging it over to the empty space on the right hand side there. So I hope that gives you an idea of how to move your blocks around, and that concludes this video on moving blocks. In this video, I'm going to look at how to add a new block. So if you've now pared it down to the blocks you only need, the default blocks, you've taken away the ones that you don't really need anymore. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see in the bottom of the left-hand column that there is an Add a Block section. And all you do is click on that drop-down menu, and it'll show you all the types of blocks that you can add. So you've got quite a big list of different types of blocks here. So let me just choose one, for example. Let's do comments. So all I do is click on that from the drop-down menu, and you'll see that that block now adds itself onto the bottom of that column. I could then move that across, I could move it up, I can rearrange it just as I showed you in the previous moving a block video. I can add more blocks by just clicking in there. You can add as many blocks as you like so that your columns can become quite lengthy if you add lots of blocks. But that is how you add a new block. In this video, we're going to look at the dock, the block dock, as some people call it. So this is a way of getting some of the blocks out of the way so that there's a little bit more room on your screen. So if you do want the blocks to be available, so you don't want to delete them, but you want them kind of out of the way just to make more room for everything else, then you can use the dock. Now, the way to do that is that you use this right hand icon here. So it looks like a little square with an arrow pointing to the left, and if you hover over it, it says dock recent activity block. If I click that, you'll see that that now appears on the left hand side. If I hover over it, I can see the contents of that block, but you can see that it doesn't appear in the column anymore. I can do that the same with the comments as well. And if I now move that over to the left, you can see that we still have all of the blocks available, but we have a bit more room for the content on the right hand side, only need for one column. And you can do this similar with the ones on the left as well. So navigation, I could pop that into the dock as well. And then people could hover over it and use the navigation if they like. Now you can always get things out of the dock just by using the opposite control. So you've got a little square with a right hand arrow in there. If I click that, that brings the navigation block back into the column. And similar with recent activity, hover over it, click the little return the block from the dock to the column, and that'll turn it, that'll put it over into the right hand column. I have to admit, I don't use the dock very often. I tend to just tidy up courses so that they don't really need docking of blocks. You'll take away blocks that aren't really needed anymore. But some students can do this themselves and tidy up the course so that the things that they don't use, they can remove to the dock just to get them out of the way. So it's a useful thing to know about. So that concludes the video on the block dock. I hope that was useful. In this video, we're going to look at the recent activity block. Now, this is the one that I always tend to include on just about any course because it's a really useful block for students to be able to keep up with their course. So the recent activity block shows just about anything that's happened on the course since you last logged in. For example, one of the most useful applications of this is for keeping up with discussion forums. So if you have discussion forums on your course and you want students to contribute to those forums, the recent activity block will show the last few conversations that have been going on. It'll show all of the conversations, all of the replies that have been going on since that student last visited. And so it'll more encourage that student to get into the discussions and actually contribute something to them. Similarly, it'll show any new activities, any new resources and new pages. So if you're adding new pages, new links, any new things that you want the students to take part in, to see, then it's useful to have the recent activity block available because they'll see these things as you add them. And it'll draw them more to these items and make it more likely that they'll have a look at them and take part. So I hope that gives you an idea of when and where you could use the recent activity block and why it might be useful to you. In this video, I want to look at the online users block. Now, the online users block does nothing more than tell you who else has been online in the last 5 minutes. So it tells you what students, what teachers, what managers have been in this course within the last 5 minutes or are currently on the course. Now, the reason I tend to include this on courses is just for a bit of social interaction, I suppose. It doesn't even encourage that interaction as such because the students can't really chat to each other directly unless you have a chat room installed, of course. But it gives online students the impression or the idea that there are other people around. And since online learning, one of the biggest disadvantages is that people can feel a bit isolated. They can feel a bit lonely learning online. I quite like the idea that people can see that there are other people involved in this course. There's a little bit of social presence around, so there are other people involved and taking part at the same time as them. So that's why I tend to include the online users block. As an added bonus as well, if you actually click on the users within this, it takes you to their profile. So that may well, and I've got some anecdotal evidence for this, it may well increase the interactions on courses because it encourages students to have a look at each other's profiles, maybe get to know each other a little bit better, encourage them to fill out their own profiles, knowing that other people are going to have a look at them. And so again, just adds a little bit more social presence to the course, hopefully increasing the success, retention, all of those good things that tend to come with a bit more social engagement. So that's the online users block, and I hope it gives you some idea of why and when it might be useful to you. In this video, I want to introduce the HTML block, one of the most flexible blocks in your block arsenal. So the HTML block essentially just means that you can add any kind of content to your course in the sidebar that you can create with HTML. So this ranges from anything like just plain text, for example, up to styled text, right up to images or videos, or even anything else that you can bring in via HTML. So to have a look at how they work, just click on the cog icon and that'll let us configure a new HTML block. And that shows us how we can just add certain elements of text. So we can just give the block a title, and we could add some content just here to show what it looks like. So I've just added this short bit of content with an image in it as well, and we'll see what this looks like actually on the front page. So you can see that block just appears wherever you place it. You can move it around obviously, but you can put whatever content you like within that block, and it can be used by the students. Now, one of the most useful uses of this block is not just to show content like this, not just static content, but to actually have links that guide students around your course. So you could use this block to actually have links to all of the commonly used elements of your course. For example, if you have a question and answers forum, a problems forum, or if you have a regular weekly meetup on Elluminate or some other type of video conferencing, you can have links to these elements within an HTML block and actually have those commonly used parts of the course on hand for students at any time, just in the sidebar. So that's a nice way to use the HTML block. And I've seen many other ways to use it as well, and really just limited by your imagination and how you can use HTML. So I hope that gives you an idea of how to use the HTML block as well as what it can be used for. In this video, I want to show you the activities block, and I'm using another course to show it because generally it needs activities and resources within a course to show. And on our demonstration course currently, obviously we're just building them. So on this course, you can see the activities block here. The activities block gives your students a shortcut to certain types of materials. So you can see in here that you can link to forums. So students can visit any forums within your course or get an index of all the forums within your course just by clicking that link. Similar with resources. So if I click the resources link there, that'll take me to all of the resources within this course as an indexed list. So in general, there's quite a lot of books here. So a lot of books listed, can go straight to them. Quite a few pages as well. So it'll give the student a really easy way to find certain types of activities or resources within your course. It really saves the student a bit of time in searching around for something. If they know that they want to go to a forum, but they don't want to actually find out where to access that forum again, they can just go straight to the activities block, click the forums link, and then search through the forums and only forums to find the one that's relevant to them. So it's a nice one to add to the sidebar of your course. Really, it doesn't take you any work to maintain because it's automatically created by Moodle depending on what resources are within your course. So it's no extra work, and it gives the student an extra way to navigate around the course, which is always a good thing. So I hope that gives you an idea of what the activities block does and why it could be useful to you. In this section, we're going to start to look at resources within Moodle. So resources tend to be the static material that your students will consume while they're working their way through the course. So it should be text, images, videos, audio, links to external resources, that type of thing. So this is nothing interactive yet. This is really just the stuff that people read, view, and listen to on your course. And these resources are added by clicking within any section the link at the bottom that says add an activity or a resource, and you can find the resources at the bottom of the list if you just scroll down. So the different resources we have are books, files, folders, IMS content packages, labels, pages, and URLs. So we'll work through each of these resources in different videos and show you how they work. In this video, I'm going to look at labels and how to create them on your sections. So to add a label, simply go to the section you want to add a label to, click the Add an Activity or Resource link, and then scroll down to find the label. Click Add, and it'll take you to the label edit page. Now, a label is simply a block of text or images, or even videos or links, that appears on the front page or within the sections of your Moodle course. So they tend to be introductions to sections or to guide people through the section in terms of pointing out resources. You can add material to your label in the same way as you would with any other content. So you've got the standard content editor, which we've covered in other videos. So I'll just add some standard content here just to give a demonstration of how it works. So I've now added a bit of content here. You can also add some links, some videos, anything that you can normally add within the content editor. And we'll see how this looks within the view. So you can see that the label appears as I've formatted it on the front page of Moodle. So that can be moved around within that section. And if I then have more resources added to it, I can move the label up and down, reorder. Essentially, the label acts as a very similar purpose to the header. So to the summary that you have for a section. So if I was to create a summary for this section, a label will be a very similar type of thing, but the label can be ordered. So the label can be moved down, so you can have resources above the label. And you can give a bit of an introduction to resources within that section. So I hope that gives you an idea of how labels can be created and what they can be used for. In this video, I want to look at how to create pages within Moodle. So a page is simply a piece of content that appears deeper within Moodle, so it's not on the front page, and it's linked to from a section. We'll show how that appears though once we've created one. So to create a page in the first place, add an activity or resource, then scroll down to the resources section and click page, and then click add. So there are a few different options in here. We first set a name and a description. So I've now added a name for the page and I've added a description. The description actually by default doesn't show anywhere within Moodle, so it doesn't actually show up on the front page or within the page itself. That can be changed though by clicking this box at the bottom here, which says display description on course page. So if I tick that, then that description will actually appear below the page title. I'll turn it off for just now, but we'll have a look at how it looks just in a minute. We'll try it again with the same settings. So the next section down is the content. So this is actually what's going to appear on the page itself. So I've now added in some content for this page, and we can go and see what that looks like once we save it. The only settings unique to pages is appearance, and that lets you display lets you choose whether you want to display the page name and a page description. So by default, the page name does appear on the page itself, but page description doesn't. So let's have a look at what that looks like initially. So click Save and Display, and that'll take us to the page. So that is the page name. That is showing as ticked within the appearance section. If I was to untick the show page name, then that would disappear, and I could set my own page title just within the content itself. But that's what the page looks like. Essentially, you're another level deep within Moodle. So you can see in the breadcrumbs that you've got my first page as the current location, topic 4, but then I could click back up to the front page of Google of the course just by clicking on there, which is what I'll do just in a second. So yeah, that's what the page looks like. And if I click back out to the front page, then you can see how the page appears within the section itself. And there we are. So it appears with the page icon. It's a link to the page itself. And you've also got the edit icon, which lets you edit any of the properties about that page. Now I want to let you see what it looks like when you show the page description here as well, because sometimes that's useful if you have some more detailed descriptions you want to show. So I'll go back into, this is me editing the page again. I'll display description on course page. I'll come down and I'll save and I'll return to course this time rather than save and display the page. And there you can see that that description that I typed in appears below the title of the page. So it might be that you want to include that description, you might want to give a little bit of extra information, or you can use labels to actually give overall information for a few different resources. So it's up to yourself where you want to include that explanation information on your Moodle course. So that's how you create a page, and I hope that gives you an idea of how you can use pages within your Moodle course. In this video, we're going to look at books. Now, books essentially are just collections of pages. Books are ways of bringing together a series of collected resources, really just in the form of text, images and videos, and put them into one collection of resources which has a bit of navigation added to make it easy to go through as well. So, easiest way to show you is to show you. So let's add a book. So I'll click down, find the book, click add, and it'll take us straight to the book edit page. So the first thing to do is to name the book and to give it a description. So I've added a name and description. You get similar options to the page tool, so you can have a look back at the page video if you want to know about all of these. And in appearance, the only unique thing to books is how you format the chapter numbers. So I would say normally I use numbers or none. So you can choose to either number your chapters or to have no numbers at all. I'll leave the numbers on so that you can see how that looks. Now the custom titles option is quite handy because when you're naming your chapters, quite often you want your chapter titles to be quite short to appear in the navigation quite easily, but then you probably want a longer, more descriptive title within the page itself. If I click that, that means that the chapter title doesn't appear on the page and you just create your own title. Now I'll explain that a little bit more when we actually look at the content of the book, but just to know that the custom titles option is here to get rid of the chapter titles on the pages themselves. So we'll go now to Save and Display and have a look at the book options. So when you're first creating a book, you have to add the first chapter before you can look at what it's, let's see what it looks like, I should say. So I've now added the content for our first chapter. So I'm just going to save changes and see what that looks like. Now, as I said, the book chapters look exactly like pages. They can contain the same stuff as pages, so that could be text, images, videos, that type of thing. But the main difference between a book and a page is this navigation. So you see up in the top left here, we have a table of contents. So we've only got one chapter so far, but once we have more chapters, and I'll show you that just in a second, you can navigate amongst the chapters here. So I'm just going to create another chapter by clicking the plus button there, and that lets us create a new chapter. I'm just going to add some content to this chapter too. So on this page, I've actually just embedded a video. So it shows that you can do that within a book as well. Save changes. And that'll go out and show that page. So now you can see that the table of contents starts to build up as you create more pages. And you can navigate between these pages within the book just by clicking on the links in the table of contents up here. The other benefit of having your material in a book is that you have these navigation elements here. So you've got arrows on the top and the bottom. So if I just click, this is the first chapter, so if I finish that, I get to the bottom, I just click the next arrow, I can then see the next page straight away. And then once I get to the last one, you get this up arrow that takes us back out to the front page. So it makes the navigation of materials a little bit more simple for the students. So I mentioned earlier that you can turn off the option to see chapter titles within your page. Now you can see that this is the chapter title here. So it says it's got the number 2 because we had numbered formatting on. So you can see 1 and 2 there. That's the numbered formatting. You can turn that off to have no formatting or make it letters, A, B, C. But this is the chapter title, and that's the same as the navigation over there. Now, I mentioned that you might want these titles to be a bit shorter so that the navigation works a bit more easily over here. You probably want quite short, snappy titles to make this navigation quite easy to use. Once you got into 2 lines, it gets a little bit cumbersome, so it's quite nice just having a short one. So quite often I will turn off titles appearing on pages. I'll have a nice short title for each chapter to appear in navigation, and then that won't appear on the main page, and I can just create my own title. And I can show very quickly how to get to that just now. So I'll just go down to Book Administration. Now the easy way, just the shortcut to get into the edit mode for any kind of element of Moodle is to go down to the admin tab, and you'll always find whatever element it is and then administration. So you can go to edit settings. So that's book administration, edit settings, and that takes us into the book settings. So what I'm going to do is go down to appearance, and I'm going to click custom titles, and then I'm going to save and display. Now you can see that the titles do not appear. So the chapter titles, which appear here, do not appear on the book itself, on the pages itself. So if I go to this page here, you only see the title of the actual book. Now what I'm going to do is edit this chapter. To edit a chapter, you use the edit icons that are next to the chapter here. So these move them around. So you've got the up arrow that can move the order of the chapters. You've got an X to delete them. You've got an I so that you can hide them from students at any point, and you've got the plus to add a new chapter after that. But what I want to do now is edit this book chapter. And what I'm going to do is take this title, cut that out. I'm going to put that on the page itself instead. So I'm going to place that here, and I'm going to make that a header. Oops, I'm going to make that a header. So that's why I want to actually be the title of the page itself, but I want the chapter title to be a bit shorter because this is what's going to appear in the navigation. Demo Google Drive. And I'll click Save Changes, and you'll now see that the demonstration of how to use Google Drive appears there. So that's the title I want, but the navigation is much easier, so it's much shorter. So that's how to create much more effective navigation within books, but keep your descriptive titles within the pages themselves. So I hope that gives you an idea of how to use books within Moodle, the type of content you can include, how to edit the chapters, and generally how useful they'll be in collating all of the resources that you're offering to your students. In this video, I want to show you how to add the URL resource to your Moodle website. This is just another type of resource, so just click the Add an Activity or Resource button again, and then go down to URL at the bottom and click Add. So add the name and description as you would for any other resource, like so. So these are our standard name and description. And we'll go down, and all we do is insert the URL here. So all I'm going to do is find the page that I want to link to, which is this Google Drive download page, copy that URL, and then go right back to the resource editing page, paste it in there, and then click Save and Display. Now most of these options are just all can be happily left at default, so leave them as they are, and then you can save and return to course. And we'll see how that appears on the page itself. So you can see that it appears with a little icon that looks like a planet on a piece of paper, so it indicates an external resource, and you can click that link to see how it looks within Moodle. That goes straight to the resource itself. So that's all you do to add that external link to Moodle. Now the difference between doing it with the URL resource and just having internal links within your labels is minimal actually. It just means that within your labels or within your header text, if you link out to external resources, the link works just fine, but Moodle actually just classes this as a URL resource, and then it will appear in the activities block. So it will make it more easy for your students to navigate around these URLs because they're able to find it in the resources section here. So it's in the resources section as found here. So you can group together those URLs. That's really the only advantage to using that URL resource tool. So I hope that gives you an idea of what the URL resource does and when you could use it. In this video, we're going to look at adding files to your course. So similar to adding any other resource, you just go to the section you want to add the file to, click on the Add an Activity or Resource, and then scroll down to File. Click Add, and then we get to the File Details page. Now files really include anything that can't be stated just in text, images or video. So these would be things like Excel files, PowerPoint presentations, possibly PDFs if you can't convert that to normal text to put onto your course. Generally, if it's something like a Word document, for example, if it's just text and images, it's best to create a page for that because it makes it more accessible, both for normal students and for those with impairments. So it's worth converting Word or just text-based files to pages, but obviously there are some situations where you can't do that, such as presentations. So in this demonstration, I'm going to show how to upload a PowerPoint presentation as a file. So I've added in the name and description. Just choose whatever you want to describe the file. As I said in a previous video on pages, the description only appears if you tick this box at the bottom on the front page, so you can choose that if you like. Then we get to the content, and in this, when uploading a file, really you just select files to choose which file it is that you're going to include. So go to Choose File to Attachment, and then we can choose our presentation. So upload this file, and then it brings you back to the file edit page, and it shows you the file there in the list of files. Now the only settings that are unique to files below this in appearance are size and type. So you can choose to show how big the file is. So if it is a particularly big file, if it might take a long time to download, or they might not want to do it on mobile devices, you could show the size, that'd be courteous to your students. You can also show the type, so you could show that it's a PowerPoint file, just so people know what type of thing they are downloading. But that's all you really have to set for your file. So if we just save and display, it'll show how the file appears within Moodle. So when people click on that file, they're showed this page, which shows the name and description, and then they can click this link to actually download that file itself. If we go back out to the course page, you can see how the file appears within the section it's been uploaded to. And you can see that actually Moodle's quite good at adding on the right type of icon. So you can see there's a little PowerPoint icon there. It's quite nice. And as I said, I didn't tick the show description option within the file settings, so it's not showing the description here, but you could add that if you like. So I hope that made clear how to upload a file and what type of files you can use within your Moodle course. In this video, I want to look at editing resources. So we've looked already at how to create resources in the first place, and in some cases we've looked at editing them in those videos, but this is quickly just to look at the easy ways to edit resources. So here's my section with a few different resources in it. I've got a page, a file, a book, and a URL. Now, obviously, the first thing you find when you want to edit is this link on the right-hand side. So click Edit, and you can do edit settings. Now quickly before I do that, the most simple thing you can edit actually is just the title. And you can edit the title from the front page here. All you do is click that little pencil right next to the title, and I can edit the title to whatever I like. So you can change that title, no worries, from here. You don't have to go into the full on editing section. But if we do want to edit something a bit more deep, like the content for example, we have to go to edit and then edit settings. And any of those icons would let us go to the edit settings. That lets us edit the contents of that resource. So I can go into content, I can change all of the settings down here, and that's all fine. And I can click Save and Display and look at the resource itself. Now the other trick is that you can also edit things directly from their display page. So if you're viewing a page, for example, you can edit it from here. If you're viewing a book, you can edit it from there. If you're viewing a file, you can edit from there as well. Whatever resource or activity you're working with on Moodle, you can edit from their display pages. To do this, just scroll down and find the admin block. So the admin block is really handy in a lot of different ways, but editing is probably the most important part. So always in the admin block, you've got a few different things. If you're a teacher on a course, you've got course admin. You've also got switch role and you've got profile settings. But whenever you're actually inside a resource, whenever you're viewing a resource or viewing an activity for that matter, you've got an admin panel for that resource. So here I'm viewing a page, so I've got a page module administration panel. And there are quite a few things I can do in here. The main thing I'm looking at just now is edit. So from here, I don't have to go back out to the front page and click the edit icon. All I have to do is find the admin block and click edit settings. And that takes me straight into editing of the page itself. Now the only exception to that is that books are a little bit strange because they have two levels. So with books, if I scroll down and have a look at this book, if I click edit here, edit settings, that edits the settings of the overall book wrapper. So if you imagine the book wrapper is like the cover of the book. So that includes the name of the book, the description of the book, and how that book appears inside. It doesn't let you actually change the content. To change the content, you actually have to look at the book itself. So you have to actually go to one of the pages of the book, and then you have to edit the chapter itself using the cog up in the table of contents. You can always get back out to the book settings here just by going to the admin panel again, book admin, edit settings. But whenever you want to edit the chapter itself, the content of the chapter, you always have to go to the cog button up here. So I hope that gives you an idea of how you can edit resources within Moodle, and I think it saves a lot of time knowing this trick, that if you just go to the admin panel, you can edit resources directly from their display page. So I hope that helps, and that you know now how to edit resources with ease. In this video, we're going to look at assignments. Assignments are the activity which is designed really to allow students to submit material back to you. So you can set a task, you can give them a task with any type of material, so you can give them a video, some text, images, audio, whatever you like to set your task. You can also offer the students a file, so let them download a file, and that really sets the task criteria, and then the students can go away, complete that task, and then they can submit something back to you. So they can submit anything digital to you at the end of that task. And that's an assignment. Really, it's send out something and expect to get something back in a digital form. Obviously, the classic method of that would be an essay. So you say what the essay has to be about, the student goes away and writes that essay, and then they submit, say, a Word document or a text document back to you using the assignment tool. Another example could be a video. This could be a bit of a more advanced type of assignment. So you could give the students some specs around what type of video they have to make. You can give them some base materials like some video clips, maybe some audio or some tutorials around how to do it. And then the students would submit that video file back using the assignment tool, or possibly just submit the URL for the video that they've uploaded to YouTube or similar. So there's a few different ways you can use the assignment tool. In fact, there's quite a lot of different ways you can use the assignment tool, depending on your imagination. So let's look at how it works. We've got the standard starting material, so you just give the assignment a name. So there's the assignment name. You would put in a description. So there's a very short description. You would put that in, and that would show up on the assignment page. And then we'll move down. Next options are availability. So this allows you to say when the assignment's open. So if you want it to have only a limited opening date, so it's only open for submissions for 1 week, say, or 2 weeks, you can set the dates here. You can turn those off entirely so the assignment's always open and it won't close just by clicking these enable buttons, and that turns off the start and the end date. But if I turn on the start and the end date, then the due date is obviously here, 23rd of October 2014. You can also have a cut-off date. So that means that students can hand in things late, but there is a cut-off date a certain amount of time afterwards. So say you wanted to allow students to hand in things up to 3 or 4 days late, you can say 23rd is the due date, but the cut-off date is the 26th. If you hand in after the 23rd, but before the 26th, then you are late, but it will still accept your submission. Now this little tick box here, always show description, that just means that the description will show outside of these dates. So even though people can't submit items to the assignment, the description will still show. If you want the description to be hidden until the certain dates, until it's actually opened, then you can untick that, and that means that only the name will show up, so students won't be able to get to the material itself. So you can close off an assignment really until it opens up officially by unticking that. But let's move down to the next ones. Next, we've got submission types. So this is what type of material the students can submit for the assignment. A couple of main options here. You've got either online text or you have file submissions, or you can have both, of course. So online text essentially just means that the students are offered a text entry box, so they can copy and paste text straight into a text entry box. So this is suitable for very short things that they have to submit. For example, if they have to submit a URL for that video assignment that I mentioned earlier, you would put just online text. And that means they could just copy in the web address to their submitted video to your assignment. But if they have to submit something larger, like a Word document or a PowerPoint document or anything like that, any type of file, you want to tick file submissions, and that lets the students actually upload a file to the assignment box. With the online text one enabled, you can have a word limit, so you can say that they can only upload 300, 500 words or whatever to the text box. That gives you that option. And for the file submissions, you've got maximum number of uploaded files as well. So if you want to make sure the students can only upload, say, 1 or 2 files, you can set that limit there. And equally with the submission size as well. If you don't want students to be uploading 1 gigabyte sized video files, then you can put a limit on it here to make sure they can only upload a certain size of file. Next, we move down to feedback. So this is how you're going to offer feedback to the students around this assignment. So the first one is feedback comments. This means the marker can actually put a comment on each submission that the student puts in. So it means that they can do that within Moodle. They can put a little comment on every single submission that the student has submitted. Feedback files means that the marker can upload a file with feedback in it. So it's not just standard text comments that they can put into Moodle, they can actually upload a file. So that could actually be the downloaded file of the student and re-uploaded with comments on it, that type of thing. The offline grading worksheet lets you download an actual worksheet with the grades on it so that you can mark all of the sheets, all of the assignments, and then upload that again. So that's an option too. Now, if you are using feedback comments, the comment inline allows you to bring in the submission text so that you can actually comment inline. By that, I mean, if they say upload 500 words of material to be marked, it brings that 500 words into the comments, and you can actually comment in amongst all of that text so that you can comment right next to the bits you're commenting on in a different colour, say, so that it's highlighted. Next, we go down to submission settings. So require students click submit button means that if it's set to no, then the students don't have to click the submit button straight away. They can save their assignment as a draft for a while, so they can decide, they can start to upload things and then not actually fully submit it until they click the submit button. You can also require that students accept the submission statement. So that's basically just the terms and conditions type of thing. So if you need the students to agree that they haven't plagiarised, that it's all their own work, that type of stuff, you can put in a submission statement here. If you click that to yes, make sure that they agree to that when they submit. Attempts reopened. There's a few options here. So never means that the attempts are never reopened. So that means that once students have submitted, there's no remarking, there's no resubmission, there's no redos for the students. Other ones are manually, so you can reopen a submission. So say you talk to a student and say you're going to accept a new version with a few changes, you can manually reopen their submission. Or you can do automatically until pass. So if a student is marked as having failed, then it reopens for them and they can submit a new assignment or a new submission. And similarly, maximum attempts gives you the chance to say they can only resubmit 1, 2, 3 or more times if those resubmissions are open to the students. Next, we have group submission settings. So if you're working with groups in your Moodle course, you can allow students to submit in groups. So that would mean that they're actually going to submit their assignment as a group assignment. So if students are working together as a group to do something, you can allow them to submit in that manner. Enabling this will group students into the groups that are set within your course. Require all group members submit. That means that if it's set to no, it means that if one student from a group submits, then that's their submission done. So if you're only expecting the group to submit one item of material that they've all created together, then you keep that on no, but you put it to yes if you want every group member to submit something of their own. And grouping for student groups, if you have different groupings set up in your course, then you can set that and choose the right ones. Otherwise, the default groups for the course will be used. Notifications, pretty simple. It just means that you can set it so that it notifies graders when submissions are made, about late submissions as well. And you can also set it whether it'll notify students when their grades are submitted to to Moodle by the graders themselves. Lastly, we come down to the grade section. So you can set how the assignment will be graded. A few different options here. We've got none, so it's not going to be graded. Or we can have a scale. So you can have a standard scale, which you can set. Normally, if you're working within a university, there'll be set ranges of scales that can be used within assignments, and you can choose them from this drop down here. Or if you're working with Moodle yourself, you can set your own scales. So it could be 0 to 50, 0 to 100, that type of thing. Or even A to C, A to B, that type of thing. Point scale, that's just setting the maximum points. So that's you just setting a standard number scale. Obviously in the scales, that tends to work with the letters. So that's the A to C, A to D. But you can set numbers in there too. But if you're normally working with numbers, percentages, that type of thing, you will normally just put in a 50 to 100 in here and go on a point scale. The grading method, there's a few different in here. You can go off a simple direct grading, which just means that the marker will just use the point scale or a normal scale, A to B, A to C, that whatever they want to use. Or you can go for more advanced ones. The marking guide means that you're going to set up a guide for the assignment, which essentially means you're going to set some criteria And then a marker will see these criteria as they're marking the material. They'll put a comment against each criteria and then put a mark in as well. So you'll say, put in a comment and mark this out of 5 points. The next criteria, you'll say, put a comment in for this and then mark this out of 7 points. So that's a marking guide. You're giving much more definitive criteria against which to mark. Similarly, a rubric can be used. Rubrics are a bit more complicated. A rubric tends to be based on a scale. So again, you'll go for criteria. So you're going to be marking against this, this and this. But each of those will have a scale, and the scale tends to be the same for every single one. So you'll say poor, medium or good, for example. And then you'll mark each criteria, poor, medium or good, based on that rubric. And then at the end of it, that will automatically work out a mark for the assignment based on the scales that you've set. Grade category next is how the grade will appear in the gradebook. So you can set categories within your gradebook. You can set that within your course setup, and that will define how these grades appear within the gradebook, what sections of the gradebook it's going to appear so that students can have a look at it. Blind marking, as it sounds, you're not going to see who the students are, so it'll hide the students' names so that you're not basing your score on who it is that's submitted the assignment. Use marking workflow puts you through a certain set of steps before all the marks are released. So that's really a way of setting a set of processes in place whereby markers have to go through. You can assign students to markers, for example, and then only once the full process has been completed will the marks be released to the students. So it really just sets that workflow in place so that marks are only put out at a certain time. And that's pretty much all the settings for the assignment tool. Now this has been a bit of a longer video than standard because the assignment has quite a lot of settings that go about it. It's because it's probably one of the most used tools within Moodle because it follows pretty much a standard way of old school assignment. So you handing out a set of tasks and getting something back from the students. So it has to cover a lot of options to allow that to happen. But I hope that's been clear on the different options that are available and given you an idea of how you can use the assignment tool in your own Moodle teaching. In this video, I want to look at the chat tool. So the chat tool is a way of offering live support to your students, but in a text format. So it works in the same way as any other instant messaging tool. So you can use Skype in this way, just typing to each other, or you can use something like Instant Messenger or Yahoo Messenger. And all of them allow you to write text messages to each other in a big group. So the chat tool essentially allows you to set up this chat room whereby your students can communicate with each other. They can ask you questions and you can communicate with them. Now, the setup is reasonably simple for the chat room. You just give it a name to start with, so just call it chat room, and then give it a description. So there I've just entered a description which shows a common use of the chat tool, which is essentially to run open office hours type of sessions. So you can say a chat room is always going to be open from 9 till 10 on a Wednesday morning every single week. And if you have any issues with the material, if you want to communicate with me or even just catch up with the rest of your class, then pop in at that time and we can have a bit of a chat session. So let's have a scroll down and look at the other settings. You can set a chat time, so you can say the next session will be at, let's say, the 20th of October at 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. And then you can say repeat publish session time. So that means it'll show those repeat times if you want to set that. So same time every day, or same time every week. So that's probably the most common one you would use, at the same time every week. The other options obviously are that you don't want to post chat times. So it might be that you just want the chat room to be available for students to use at any time. So they could just pop in any time, catch up with each other. They could arrange their own sessions among themselves. You might want to set up just a student accessible chat room where they just use it as a social space. So that would be when you wouldn't want to publish any chat times. Or you could just set it up as a one-off. So if you just wanted to have a chat time on the 20th of October, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, just say no repeats, and that is the only time it'll be. And then you can obviously produce a new chat room at sometime in the future when you schedule the next one. Now you can save past sessions, so you can say never delete messages. That means the material will always be there in the chat room from previous chats, or you can give it a limit so that things will disappear after, say, 2 days, 7 days, a couple of weeks, that type of thing. Or if you want just to be active for a semester, so you could say 3 months. So then we have everyone can view past sessions. Now this defines who can actually see these past session messages. So if you put it to no, then that means that only people with certain permissions, such as teachers or managers, can actually view the previous session chat messages. So maybe that you just want to have a record of them for yourself. Or if you set it to yes, that means that everyone can view them, and that means that students can look back at previous conversations too. Really, it's up to yourself. There's not many reasons either way, so it's just a personal choice. But it can be quite useful for students to be able to look back at previous sessions, either to look at the questions that were answered for them, or just to review conversations that they've had with each other to make sure they remember what they were talking about if they say they set deadlines or agreements on who would do certain types of work. So that gives you an idea of how to set up a chat session and maybe a few ideas about how they could be used. In this video, I want to look at forums. So forums are activities which allow students to communicate with each other in an asynchronous format. So they can post messages, they can reply to other people's messages, but they don't all have to be online at the same time to communicate as they would with the chat activity. You've probably seen many forums online, you've probably experienced many forums. I don't need to explain exactly what a forum is, but it's essentially that, just that asynchronous communication which allows students to ask for help, to communicate, to socialise, but have the flexibility to only take part when and where they can. So let's have a look at the settings. We have the standard basics at the start, so give it a forum name. So let's call it our class forum. And then you give it a description as well. So just describe exactly how this forum works and how the students should use it. So the rules for the forum, really, what this forum is going to be used for. So I've just entered an average description there, just describing the use as a problems forum. So if you have a forum set up, which will be for questions and answers, issues that come up, questions that come up in the material, then you could put in a description something similar to that. I'm trying to encourage these students to actually talk to each other as well, so to answer each other's questions. So let's move down. First option we have is the forum type. So this is probably the most key question here. So there's a few different things in here. First one at the top is a single simple discussion. So this means there's only going to be one thread of discussion, so people can just post one after the other messages on top of each other. So this is the most simple way. There's no different threads. It's really just one big long conversation. And it's useful in quite a lot of different contexts. Mainly if you want to just keep the conversations flowing, keep everyone together, so it's just really one big group discussion as opposed to breaking off into different little groups. Next one, you've got each person posts one discussion. So that means that it moves out from just the one discussion. We can have a number of discussions, but each person can only post one. So every student in the class has the option to post their own discussion and not more than one. Next down, we have questions and answer forum. So this has a unique property whereby students can only view other people's postings once they post their own. So they have to go in, they have to post something, post a question, post a comment, post something of any sort, and then that opens up the viewing of other stuff. So that's why it's called a Q&A forum. They have to ask a question and then they can answer all the other people's questions. Next, we have standard forum displayed in a blog-like format. So that is a standard forum whereby people can post as many different topics as they like. Lots of different topics can be posted, but it's displayed in a unique way, as in each topic just has a little blog posting effect. So it's just a box showing that topic on its own, and then it shows a list of all of these topics with a little introduction to each topic. And then there's a link in each one that says discuss this topic. So the student would choose whichever topic they want to contribute to, click the discuss this topic link, and it would take them to that topic where they can then add a comment themselves. This differs really from the standard forum for general use, because the standard forum for general use shows you all of the different threads. So you can actually click into the threads, you can look through the different threads of discussion. really the best way to see that is actually just to try them out yourself. So just look at those formats, try them out. Really, I tend to use Standard Forum for general use for my normal forums. I haven't really found an advantage of the blog-like format in my own use. So I would encourage you to try maybe the Standard Forum for general use at first if you want an open forum, and maybe try the blog-like one just to see if it works for you. The only other one that I use often is a single discussion, because it's quite good for keeping all the conversations in one place, making sure everyone talks to each other, as opposed to just ask you a question as a tutor. So we'll have a quick look at the other options in here as well. You can allow students to attach things to their postings. So they can attach files, they can attach images. You can set a limit on that, and you can set a limit on the number. You can set a limit on the size of that, and you can set a limit on the number. You can also display word count as well. So you can turn on word count, and that really is for use if you want to put a word limit on postings, which can be useful actually, because there's nothing worse than going into a discussion forum as a student and seeing tons of 1,000-word postings and you having to try and slog your way through. So it's quite good to encourage students to keep them short, concise, especially if it's an assessed or a part of an activity, an assessment activity where students have to actually look through it. It can make things a little bit easier for all the students if you keep the word count down. Subscription and tracking, quite a useful set of options here. Subscription refers to the capability that Moodle can send out updates on things that are happening in the forums. So if you have students subscribing to the forum, then every new message will be sent out to those students as and when they arrive. You can force people to subscribe to it. You can allow them to subscribe to it optionally. You can automatically subscribe them to it, and then they have the option to unsubscribe. So the difference here is that optional subscription, they don't start out subscribed by default, but they can subscribe if they choose to. But auto subscription means they are subscribed by default, but they can unsubscribe if they like. Forced subscription means that they can't unsubscribe, so they're always subscribed whether they like it or not. And subscription can be disabled altogether if you don't want that happening at all. You can also turn on read tracking as well, which lets students see which postings they've read, which ones are new since they last visited. It just makes it a little bit easier to work your way through the forum postings. You can also do blocking. So if you think the students are posting too much, you can say that, say in a day, you want them to only post, 2 or 3 postings maximum. So say within one day, if they post more than 4, then they'll be blocked. And you can give them a warning at 3, say. So they can say, if you post 1 more, you'll be blocked for a day. Then you can set it so that forum postings are graded. So you can use forum postings as an assignment method or an assessment method. You can give it a grade category here. So that is the category it will appear under in the gradebook. And then you can set how it will be rated as well. So the roles with permissions to rate is how you set who can rate. So you can set this to be, once it's saved, you can set this to be students. So you can set it to be that anyone can grade. So that would be if you're doing peer assessment, for example. You can set it so that the peers can grade each other. So people put in forum postings, maybe answers to certain questions, and then they grade each other's postings. You can do the aggregate type. So this is how they're graded. So that'll be the average of ratings. So if 10 students grade them on a rating scale, then it'll take an average of that. And there's a few other as well. So you can say if people just are voting, it'll count up the ratings. Or you can say maximum, minimum, or sum. So they're all reasonably self-explanatory. You can use a scale if you like. So you can say it's going to be a point scale. So it's just out of 10, 50, 100. You can set that at the points here. Or you can say it'll be a standard scale, which would be, you can set the scale you want to use. So it could be A to D, A to E, A to F, a standard type of scale like that. Or you can do other more fancy ones like the standard Moodle separate and connected ways of knowing. And then you can restrict ratings as well. So you can restrict the time period over which people can rate it. So you could say, for example, that you can make your postings for the first 2 weeks of an assignment, and then only for the last week you're going to open up the ratings. So it's a 3-week assignment in total, and ratings happen in the 3rd week. So you can set that if you tick there and set the dates upon which rating will be allowed. So I hope that gives you an idea of all the options that are available to you in a forum. And it maybe gives you an idea of how you could use a forum as well, either as a standard discussion forum for questions, problems, or socialising, or as an assessment tool when using the grading and ratings down at the bottom here.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed this Moodle course. I hope it gave you a good idea of how to get started in using Moodle to improve your teaching. And I wanted to tell you about another thing that I work on quite a lot. One of my main teaching activities, actually, one of the things I use Moodle for is to teach podcasting. So I use podcasting for a lot of my teaching activities. I run a company called The Podcast Host, whereby we help any companies, any businesses, or any educational institutions to use podcasting to further aims. And one of the big ways is, of course, to teach students. So podcasting is a great way to engage with your students, to give them learning materials in a different way, to give them in a different format. So if you think you could use podcasting in your teaching, if it could help you to either teach your students or to demonstrate impact in your research, then please do pop over to thepodcasthost.com, where you'll find all of our free articles and a free email course as well, where you can learn how to produce your first podcast. So again, just thepodcasthost.com, and I'll hopefully see you over there to help you improve your teaching through podcast.